one very simple piece of equipment, and I'm kind of just talking about equipment, what it is, some of its purposes, things to think about when you're getting a, some of the positive reinforcement gear, that is out there. And so one of them, obviously, it's a very important piece, is the clicker. And now, plenty of people will, because the clicker is technically called a bridge signal, so we called it in the marine mammal world. It is technically, it bridges the moment from which the behavior happens, the animal learner does the behavior, and the moment which we're going to reinforce it. So think about dolphins across the pool. I need to say, yes, I like what you're doing right there, but I can't throw a fish out there at that moment in time and accurately get there or mark that moment in time. So by using we use high-pitched whistles. We didn't use clickers with the marine mammals, really. So we didn't call it clicker training, and so it was considered a bridge signal. So I would use a high-pitched whistle and say, tweet, what I like is what you're doing right there. So that became a way I could bridge that moment in time, and then they would come to me for some sort of reward. But think about riding with your horse and being under saddle. You need to be a way that you can say, nice canter depart. You can't feed that moment in time, but you can then, you can't feed that moment in time. Santino's interfering with some filming. That's why I'm laughing. So you can't feed that moment in time, but what you can do is you can mark that moment in time. You can click on that moment in time, say, that's the piece I like. So you're bridging, again, that time lapse between the canter depart and the delivery of food. So it's a very important element. You can use other things. It doesn't have to be a clicker. I like the clicker for the horses because it's loud, it's distinct, it can be heard over a gallop, it can be heard across a paddock, it can be heard or a field, it can be heard over a jump. So I love the clicker. I think it's a very good tool. It also sounds the same from person to person to person. So think about when I first started working with John and BZ Madden, we had different people. We had men, women, grooms, me, Vinton, BZ. So we had different voices and different people doing things. The clicker sounded the same regardless. So, and there's another piece there. It has one meaning. So with having one meaning, they don't have to stop, and I think there was a study done about this, and interpret, was that word for me? Was that sound for me? They know what this is. It means one thing and one thing only. So it kind of can be a quicker response. It doesn't have to go through the brain for interpretation. It is, it's been conditioned through classic conditioning, we might add, which ends up turning it into a conditioned response, or a conditioned reinforcer, because that's kind of the point of the classic conditioning. So the clicker, there's different clickers you can use. I personally, when I first started teaching, the horse world about positive reinforcement, I would go, you couldn't go to Petco and buy a clicker. Nobody had them. The dog world really was just getting started with the positive reinforcement. So I ordered them. And what I would do is when I'd order them, I'd make sure they got me loud clickers because I wanted it loud and distinct and different. And I would tell them, if you send me the quiet ones, I'm going to have to send it back. I'm working with horses who can have a lot of adrenaline or be far away. So I like a loud clicker. And I also I prefer the box clickers. I know a lot of people like the clickers, the button clickers, but I want to know that I'm intentionally clicking, and I find when I have the button clicker in my hand, I will be kind of arbitrarily clicking things I don't necessarily want, particularly when I'm under saddle. So again, that's your own preference, however you like it. I will add that when we first start with the positive reinforcement, teaching a horse about the clicker, sometimes the loud clicker is a lot, and sometimes I will muffle the clicker in the beginning. I'll put it in a pocket, like I might put it in the pocket of a jacket. I might put it in the pocket of my pants. That's a little bit snugger. Or I might put it behind, like under my butt, where it kind of hits my leg, so that I can muffle the sound and not have it be quite so loud and distinct. So if I find the horse is a little startled by the click, I'm going to muffle it a bit until I can get them used to it, which usually takes just 15 minutes, just a few sessions, and they're like, I love that sound. But in the beginning, we have to be thoughtful that it can be a lot and it might startle the horses, but pretty soon they love the sound of the clicker, loud or not. So that is about the clicker. The other thing that I do with the clicker that I quite like, I like that it's on the wrist piece, because I have a tendency to put the clicker on my thumb. So it is on my thumb quite often where I'm just doing things, but I can then get to the clicker very easily. So I like the wrist coil because it keeps it in place. But again, there's different clickers and different ways you can do it. We attach it to targets and, you know, different things like that. So that is a clicker. That's some of the thoughts behind the clicker, and kind of trying to figure out what works for you. And maybe you have a slew of clickers. Maybe this works for this situation, but you like this in this situation. And I also do use a verbal bridge signal. So I'm not just stuck with a clicker. I can use a whole slew of different things. But that's a little bit about the clicker. Keeping it on your thumb makes it easy to get to. That is something I had no idea I did. And somebody pointed out, and I was like, oh. And then people started saying, you need to tell people that. So it's just a little tip that might help you to be able to get to your clicker a little bit faster. Anyway, that's it.